Hello, my friends. Today there is both good news and bad news. Let's start with the Kursk direction. I think it's pretty clear that the Russians have started leveling their own territory, and this is actually a positive development now. Some of Russia's missiles and bombs are hitting their own land instead of Ukraine's. Let them flatten their own cities as much as they want. Maybe now the Russian will understand what it's like to have their towns destroyed by Russian shells. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian forces aren't standing still and continue to move forward. Overnight, it was confirmed that the settlements of Cherkaske, Porychne, and Porychne were brought under control, and they advanced by 6.5 kilometers. Additional, they moved 2 kilometers and 900 meters closer to the settlement of Komarivka. It also seems like good news might be coming soon from the Belgorod direction, as it's reported that the Ukrainian forces are now in the border settlement of Yazove, just 1.5 kilometers from the border. So it looks like the Belgorod front may soon be opened. On the other hand, the Russians are trying to do something by sending another sabotage and reconnaissance group near Stotnytsky Kazachok. However, they've had no success in advancing. The Ukrainian forces successfully neutralized the group. Now, let's move on to the Ukrainian front, where there is also a lot going on. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians tried to rapidly capture Hlyboke and break through to the settlement of Lyptsi. However, the Ukrainian forces repelled all attacks, and the Russians have once again taken up a defensive position. Meanwhile, the fighting in Vovchansk continues. The Russians are still trying to make some progress, but the Ukrainian forces are holding the line, and the front line remains unchanged. As for the hottest Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are so determined to break through that they are now conducted up to 58 assaults per day. Such a level of activity has never been seen on any part on the front line throughout the entire war. Unfortunately, friends, today they have already managed to regain control of Zhuravlivka and Orlivka. The advance here has stretched another 2 kilometers and 700 meters, bringing the front line closer to the settlement of Krasny Yar and Kruty Yar. This advance has brought the Russians even closer to Myrnograd by 1 kilometer and 300 meters. Additionally, they have managed to move closer to Novodanilivka also by 1 kilometer and 300 meters, and reports from the late last evening indicated that the Russians have already begun assaults on Novodanilivka. Experts suggest that considering the Russian losses, they may not be able to sustain such an intense pace of the offensive for long. We sincerely hope this is true, but for now, the Russians are attacking with full force in Grodivka, then Yelizavetivka, Vozdvizhenka, Orlivka, and attempting to advance to also towards Mykolaiivka and near Kumyshivka and Ptycha. Moreover, shelling continues along the entire front line. Overall, the situation remains extremely difficult, and the head of the Pokrovsk administration has urged civilians to leave the city.
Ми бачимо, що сьогодні ворог майже підійшов впритул до нашої громади, до міста Покровськ. Лише трішки більше 10 кілометрів від околиць міста Покровськ. Ми бачимо, що за всі ті обстріли, які були по нашій громаді і по місту, ворог цинічно б'є або критичну інфраструктуру, або приватну забудову, або житлову забудову. Гинуть люди. Тому дуже прошу, не зволікайте, евакуюйтеся.
In the Toretsk direction, the Russians continue to assault Nelypivka, and the fighting for Pivnichne is ongoing. However, there have been no changes along the front line in the past day. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians are attempting to advance in the areas of Novyi and Zhovtnevyi microdistricts. There is also ongoing fighting for Andriivka. Although Chasiv Yar continues to be shelled, the Russians haven't made any new gains, and the front line has remained unchanged over the past day. In the Siversk direction, fighting continues in the areas of Belgorivka, Verkhnyokamensky, Spirne, Vyimka, and Porychne. The situation is challenging, but the Ukrainian forces are holding the line, and there have been no changes to the front line here either. Despite this, the Russians conducted 9 assaults in the past 24 hours. In the Kreminna direction, the Ukrainian forces continue to prevent the Russians from capturing Nevske and Terny. Despite ongoing battles, the front line remains unchanged over the past day. In the Svatove area, the Russians are persistently assaulting Berestove, launching several attacks each day without success. Similarly, fighting continues for the village of Makiivka, but the front line hasn't shifted there either. In the Kupiansk direction, battles are ongoing for Synkivka and Petropavlivka, with continued shelling of Kupiansk. However, the Russian forces have made no new advances, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians continue to assault Krasnohorivka, attempting to fully clear the city of Ukrainian forces. So far, they haven't succeeded, leaving the front line steady. Meanwhile, fighting persists around Maximilianivka and the village of Kostiantynivka, where the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Vuhledar direction, Russians continue the assaults on the village of Vodine, attempting to break through to the outskirts of Vuhledar via the fields. However, the Ukrainian forces are holding strong, preventing any changes to the front line. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, fighting is ongoing near Novodanilivka, with Russian forces attempting to advance towards Mala Tokmachka from Novoprokopivka. Yet, in both cases, the Ukrainian forces managed to break the Russian units while they are still in the fields, keeping the front line steady. Today, there are also interesting developments from this direction. So Russian sources are reporting that the Ukrainian forces might be preparing for a breakthrough here. For over a week, the enemy has been increasing the number of armored vehicles in the Orikhiv direction, conducting reconnaissance and trying to uncover the movements of our military units. According to Senator Dmitry Rogozin, the likely target of the Ukrainian forces could be the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant, which was recently hit by a drone, causing a fire at the site. While this information hasn't been confirmed, it's evident that the Russians are panicking at any sign of Ukrainian troop buildup. If this turns out to be true and the Ukrainian forces begin to advance, it could be very promising news. Many Russian war correspondents are also reporting on potential Ukrainian preparation for an offensive, so something significant might be on the horizon. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces have increased their activity, likely aiming to draw Ukrainian reserves to this area. As a result, there have been attacks near Hola Prystan, then Kozachye Lageri and Pyshanivka, as well as an increase in shelling on the right bank. However, there have been no reported changes to the front line in the past 24 hours. Also, yesterday, Belarusian President Lukashenko gave an interview where he suggested that the war needs to be stopped, admitting that they are losing the ability to maintain the upper hand.
Они постоянно нам говорили, и западники, что им война Беларуси не нужна. Мы это понимаем и говорим, что мы не собираемся с вами воевать. И не потому, что вы хорошие, а потому что мы с Россией не готовы увеличить фронт там 1200 километров. Вот вся граница 1200 километров. Сейчас фронт СВО 1000 километров. Мы готовы 1200 километров закрыть? Нет. И Курск это показал.
So when Russia had the initiative, they spoke of capturing more Ukrainian territory and creating a buffer zone. However, now that the Ukrainian forces have entered Russian territory, there is suddenly talk of needing to end the war. Okay, and that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.